So today we're going to review a little bit about diddles. We talked about this a little bit yesterday, and we have our note cards in front of us. So let's go down through these. We didn't talk a whole lot about the actual word diddles, but we have used these words a lot in class. So what is the first D for?
Diction.
Diction. So on your card, write it just like that. Because this is just like fanboys in grammar with conjunctions. And just like our Smart 7 and our TP Fast and our Steel, we use these to stand for things. What is our I for?
Imagery.
And in case you wondered, when we talked about diddles and you were to find out what diddles meant, all you had to do was look right there on that wall. It's on that wall. First and third hour, I actually gave them 5 extra points and a piece of candy because they had it for homework to bring a card back with what diddles meant on it. And every single one of them had to go home and do it for homework. When all they had to do was look up on that wall, and it was right there on that wall. But they all had to go home. Nobody looked up on the wall and found it. So what is the other D for?
Detail.
What is the L for?
Language.
What kind of language?
Figurative.
What is the S for?
Syntax.
What does that mean?
Sentences, how they're put together.
Yeah, how we put the sentences together. Okay, and we talked about this already with Charles Dickens. Now, we've talked about diction a lot already this year, and we will continue to talk about diction. Because every single time that you write a thesis statement, you can use the word diction. You can say, the author uses diction to, because what is diction? Yeah, it's the words he uses, and every author has to use words. They can't write without using words. So we can always say the words he uses. So when we talked about Jonas in The Giver, we could say, Lois Lowry uses diction to tell how Jonas was different than his society. Okay? We can always say diction. We can say, Charles Dickens uses diction to tell us Ebenezer Scrooge is whatever. Okay? So when we're talking about all of these diddles, we're going to use them in our writing. And our writings are not that difficult. Evidence-based writing is very easy once you learn the ins and outs of it. Once you learn your format, once you learn these things and how to put it together, it's very simple. Okay? It's just about putting pieces of a puzzle together. So diction we can always use because they always use words. What is imagery? No cheating.
It's when you use your senses.
It is when the author creates a mental picture for us. So let's look. It says, imagery is the use of figurative language to paint a sensory picture for the reader. And it says, the greatest of funeral fires wound up to the crowds. It roared in front of the mound. Heads melted. Wounds burst open. While blood gushed forth from the gashes in the bodies. The mightiest men had departed. Does that create a mental picture for you?
Yes.
Yes. If I said a whole bunch of men died on the battlefield, does that give you a mental picture? No. That's basically what that said, is a whole bunch of people died, but it doesn't create a mental picture for you. Imagery creates a mental picture for you. Now, mental pictures are all different. Blake's mental picture from me reading that is still going to be different than Carrington's. Just like if every single person in here read The Giver before we watched the movie, then when we first saw a picture, a film version of Jonas, every single person would have went, well, that's not who I had pictured. Every person. And if Briley would have picked the actor for Jonas, and Gracie would have picked the actor, it would have not been the same. They would have not picked the same person. Because everybody's mental picture of their characters are different. Even if that author describes them to us, we still have a different picture. But that's what imagery is that author's ability to create pictures in our minds for us. So, it is dealing with our senses. It can be talking about smells, and it can be talking about describing a great big Thanksgiving dinner, which we're going to get into for Christmas Carol. And you're going to get a mental picture of a great big turkey. Okay? And everybody's turkey is going to be a little different. Some of you are going to have a fried turkey. Some of you might have a turducken. You know what that is?
Turkey, duck, chicken.
Yeah, chicken, a duck stuffed in a chicken stuffed in a turkey.
Ew.
Tastes good.
Delicious.
That sounds good.
Okay? Now, details. What does that mean? What?
Describes what it's telling.
Yeah. Remember we talked about already about how Charles Dickens took how long to describe Scrooge?
A long
Yeah, like almost 2 pages. 3 big, huge, long paragraphs to describe one guy. Now, granted, he is our what? No, he's not. He's our protagonist. And then when we met his nephew, there's like 4 sentences. Now, granted, he was not our protagonist, and that is the reason why, but he didn't have to take 3 paragraphs to describe Scrooge. He just did. And he used a lot of details. Okay? Now, he used a lot of, remember those short parallelism phrases that all started with verbs? He did all those things. That's details. Okay? It also falls in the category of syntax. How he put those sentences together. All those little phrases combined with all those little words, with all the commas, all the short sentences, all the long sentences, how he puts things together. Both of those are details and syntax. Now, the L's is for what? Figurative language. Now, I have to look over here, so you have to look over here, you big cheaters. I want you to raise your hand if you can tell me any type of figurative language. Carol.
Repetition.
Repetition, we've already talked about in Christmas Carol. Amy?
Metaphor.
Metaphor.
Onomatopoeia.
Onomatopoeia.
Simile.
Similes.
Personification.
Personification.
Alliteration.
Alliteration.
Pun.
Pun.
Hyperbole.
Hyperbole.
Idiom.
Idiom.
Illusion.
Allusion, we've already talked about with Christmas Carol. Anything else? Gracie Duke? Cheater?
I'm out. Calling his name.
Yeah, I said, yeah, I was. Alright, so now let's look. Now, there's assonance and consonance and alliteration, and these 3 are a lot alike. Alliteration we talked about back in poetry, and that's the repetition of beginning sounds. We will sit down a little way within the wood, okay? Where the starting sounds the same, and assonance is the repetition of vowel sounds. Is crimson in thy lips and in thy cheeks. Consonance is repeating consonant sounds. So those are all repeating sounds. We're not really going to do allusions or euphemisms. We don't really do puns. We do symbols and symbolism, because when we talk about Marley's ghosts and he's wrapped in these chains, aren't these chains a symbol of his sins of life? If he would have been better in life, would his chains have been less?
Yes.
Then they are a symbol of what he did in life. That is exactly what symbolism is. Okay? Now, so that's diction, imagery, details, language. Syntax we talked about is not only sentence structure, it's also paragraph structure. bunch of little paragraphs together speeds the reading up. Long paragraphs add a lot of details. They slow your reading down so you pay more attention to what you're reading instead of speeding through. If you are reading a book that comes to an action scene, the paragraphs get really small. That way the action picks up. If you're reading, for example, The Hunger Games, and you get to an exciting part of The Hunger Games, the paragraphs are going to be really small. It speeds you up as a reader. Okay? And we're going to get to parts of A Christmas Carol where in 2 pages you're going to have 3 paragraphs on 2 whole pages. They're going to be very descriptive. Okay? Alright, so take your note cards, put them up somewhere where you can keep them. You can stick them in your books for right now if you want to. You are going to need your Stave 1 sheet. It's not really a packet. You would call it a packet. Yeah, your Stave 1 packet. We're going to start with, we are going to start with activity 2, 3, and 4. We are still using the close read at the top of the page, primarily. You can use other parts of your book if you want to, but we're using primarily that close read at the top of the page. Well, we are going to work together in groups. So go ahead and quickly and quietly get into your groups. You take all your stuff with you, part of your stuff, whatever you want to do. So activity 2, 3, and 4. Let's look at the first box first. We had a little confusion the first hour. What you're going to do is you're going to use that close read at the top. We've already gone through this in Stave 1. But you're going to pick words, phrases, or images describing the time or place. What do we call time and place? Setting. So, it doesn't, we're not picking quotes. Doesn't necessarily have to be quotes like we're going to use evidence in our papers. So it can just be words or phrases. For every word or phrase that you put on this side, you have to use and come up with your own words, phrases, or image for feelings associated with that. Okay? So whatever you use over here, you have to put a feeling that is associated with that. So this side is going to be you. You and your group. What feeling is associated with whatever you pick over here. Okay? Understand? And then the bottom, you're going, in the next activity 3, you're just going to be pulling the information from activity 2 to fill in the blanks on activity 3. And then activity 4 is pretty self-explanatory. It's pretty easy. No, we'll do one. We're going to come back and do one later.
It's on page.
I just want to make sure we get 2, 3, 4 done first.
Yeah. Page 2, bottom.
And there's a little bit of it right in here.
Questions.
There's probably enough here for you to do that. And I wouldn't bother spending my time here. There's probably enough in that box right there.
We write some of these words in here. We write these words in here, and we come up with a word that we think this means.
Can you ever use the word dark to describe the setting?
Sure. Doesn't necessarily mean dark as in lack
So
of
we
light,
write
does
all
it?
the words that we just called out. No, but we can, some of them, write them in here, and we write in here what we think.
Is nasty a feeling?
Or how we would describe
Huh?
it. Here, raise your hand.
Feelings, 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 emotions. That's a feeling. Is that a feeling? Feelings, feelings.
So, would it be, would in here we're like what we think these words mean?
No. What they would make you feel.
What they make me feel like?
Yeah. So I would write this right here. I would write cold, bleak, biting weather. Right there, right there. Cold, bleak, biting weather. What kind of feeling would be associated with that?
Snowy and chill.
That's not a feeling. Snowy's not a feeling. That would be a feeling, but does cold, bleak, biting weather make you scared? What does it make you? Okay, you could say cold if you wanted to. I would say that's very good. So you can pick something else. Put quite dark already. How does that make you feel? What if I told you it's really dark outside? Okay, then that's a feeling. I'm gonna pick some more. Do something else. What? More hot?
Is it quite dark already?
It's kind of like an accountant.
It had not been like all day.
No, a message.
So you put feelings on all these things.
Use the word novel.
Alright,
Just get a
so
good feeling you're with
Yes.
this right here.
scared.
On 3.
That's the first one.
Maybe they're tired because
No, no. Let me ask you this. What time is it? What day is it? Tell me what kind of feelings are associated with Christmas Eve at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Just the first thing you said. We're excited at 3 o'clock on Christmas Eve.
Well,
Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
You say you're pretty long.
Christmas Eve, we're excited because Christmas is coming.
He said it.
For some of us, let's do Christmas
what was that?
with our extended family at Christmas Eve night.
I went to get sick. I made you feel sick.
Dingy.
Dude, that's the exact opposite of what Elvis on the shelf does.
We do have character traits.
But it's like a house key. You can do that.
Look at it.
Stirring up, beginning, brewing, something is beginning. Most of the time it's used like storm is brewing.
What do you think staff could we do this?
You live right here? Yeah. This is what this is. This is,
Can we do this is brown?
look,
Let's do discussion.
curious, this is diction. Or disgusting. Imagery is images, isn't it? So, this stuff's right here. Everybody think like
Yeah, he sends things out and does where these images. Yeah, you spell it out.
We didn't, we're not like dingy classic. We didn't underline it. But it's right there.
Is that really what he's doing though? Is he creating a creepy setting?
That's how I spell it. Yours I spell
Okay, so maybe we take this and move it down here and put something else. No, let's use fine weather. So let's use cold, bleak, and foggy. Look, I'm using his and yours, and put dark.
Cold, bleak, biting weather. Say uncomfortable.
I put bleak. And we got from your partner. Dark. What'd you put on the bottom of the previous page? We talked about yesterday, when we talked about style and what the author was doing at the beginning of this, why he was establishing this
2, 3, and 4.
setting the way that he was, because he was doing what?
So we do.
No, you told me he's showing a change in attitude. You didn't say anything about comparing Scrooge to the city.
It's a word choice. So it's asking what kind of word choice did you use and what kind of image.